Funding provided by the Richard P. Garmany Fund at the Hartford Foundation for Public Giving.
Hi, I'm Ray Hartman. On this episode of Where Art Thou, we are in Connecticut's most populated city, Bridgeport. This is the home of 19th century showman P.T. Barnum, the very first Subway restaurant, and the Frisbee. It's also home to an eclectic mix of artists and performers who are dedicated to making their art here in the Park City, and I want to learn more about them. Now, to help us do that, we have on the line our Where Art Thou Bridgeport curator, John Torres. John is totally locked into the art scene here in Bridgeport. He's also one half of the Bridgeport-based music duo, Color Fields. In fact, you'll be hearing music by Colored Fields throughout the show. John, how you doing?
Doing great. How are you doing, Ray?
Great. So we're going to be hearing music from Color Fields. You also have a new album coming out, is that right?
That's right. It just came out. It's called Pendulum, and it's a 7-song EP that we produced partially here in Bridgeport with Peter Cadis at Tarkin Studios, and then partially with Jerry Wanda Duplessis down in Tribeca in New York.
John, before you take us to our first stop, tell me a little bit about the art scene in Bridgeport.
Yeah, the Bridgeport art scene is a really robust, active scene. We've got a lot of diversity within the Bridgeport art scene. A lot of different types of art are practiced here in Bridgeport. We've got a lot of art spaces. For example, the Reed's Art Space, the Nest Art Studios, 305 Knowlton, American Fabrics. And among them, there's hundreds of artists of just every stripe. And a lot of people, I don't think, realize that when thinking of Bridgeport. But Bridgeport is probably one of the most densely populated cities for artists in the state.
That sounds really cool, John. Where are you taking us first?
So today we're going to be heading first to Ruben Marroquin. Ruben is a textile artist that lives and works in Bridgeport and is originally from Venezuela. His work, although it's textile-based, it really has almost a foot in sculpture, and he presents them almost as paintings, these three-dimensional paintings that are meant to be placed on the wall. It's the kind of thing you just really have to see. It's extremely unique. I've never seen anything else like it.
All right. Well, I'm really excited to meet Ruben. John, thanks so much. We'll check in with you later.
Sure thing, Ray. Thanks.
We are here at the historic Arcade Mall in Bridgeport, one of the oldest indoor malls in the country and a true Bridgeport gem. It was built in 1840 and went through various renovations during the last century. Now it's home to retail spaces, artist studios, including Ruben Marroquin's space. In fact, Ruben, how are you?
Very good, Ray. Thank you so much.
How long have you been in this magnificent space?
I've been here for almost 8 years.
Now, I read somewhere that you said that being here, being in this space has helped you grow as an artist. Can you explain that?
Absolutely. When I lived in New York City, I did not have a lot of space. I was working mostly from my apartment, maybe sometimes from my bedroom.
Right.
You know, a lot of things can go wrong when you're working like that. So ever since I've had my studio, it's afforded me a lot more space. I've expanded the sizes of my pieces. And I found a new freedom in that expansion because it's really allowed me to spread my wings and really create larger works that have been picked up by notably the interior design market.
Well, great. I'm excited to see your studio. Lead the way. So, Ruben, before we get a chance to see you in action, tell me a little bit about yourself.
Well, I was born in Chicago, but mostly I grew up in Caracas. My family moved there as I was just 1 year old, and it was there that I started working with textiles. With textiles, I found a certain ease of the materials. I really enjoyed the tactile qualities, the three-dimensional qualities of the yarn, and I saw many different possibilities with this material.
Yeah. Let's talk about one of them. One is right here, and it looks like a Connecticut shoreline.
Definitely. This is a photograph we took from the Norwalk Aquarium. So looking out.
Yeah, I can see that.
And my girlfriend is a screen printer. We turned the photograph into a screen and we printed it on the linen. Once I had the image, I went ahead and stitched over it. Once we had done the print, I expressively drew this mushroom cloud, and then I proceeded to embroider the whole image.
Well, I'm really curious how you do this. So why don't we move on to the next phase here and see what you can do?
Sounds good.
Great.
Summer flowed, autumn's home, and then you know when to close your heart.
Okay, Ruben, this is a big piece. And what I'm looking at now is, it looks like bamboo, and it looks like some sort of framework. Tell me what we're doing here.
Yeah, I started working with bamboo for a project for school. I realized I could perhaps include this material into my pieces because I was already looking for a way to make the pieces more three-dimensional. And I really enjoyed what was happening when the yarns start covering the bamboo and how it starts creating different levels, different protrusions and concave areas. So that's what I'm creating. It's basically a skeleton or a structure over which sometimes I think about it as if it's a human body, the bones, and then the yarn would be the flesh that's covering like tissue. And I feel like right now there's a big movement of artists who are finding textiles to be a very valid way of approaching what it is to make art right now. So we live in such a digital era where everything is computers and screens, and I find that textiles really allow both the artist and the viewer to connect with something tactile, something real, tangible, and something that they can relate to.
Ruben, how long will this piece take?
This one, I'm expecting about 4 weeks of full-time work. If everything goes well, I should have it ready by the end of September.
Well, I want to let you keep working here, but at some point, would you mind stopping here and then we can have a look at your looms?
Oh, absolutely. I'd love that.
Great. I love what you've got going here because it does have kind of a 3D effect. It's very cool. Very
Yes,
cool.
this particular weave is called the waffle weave, and it's a favorite of weavers because of exactly what you're mentioning, that three-dimensionality. And they call it honeycomb or waffle because it gives you this type of cell. So it's a very cool effect. It's not a very practical fabric, but it's definitely very appealing visually.
Yeah, I'd say so. Now, you also have larger looms.
Yes.
And you have a computer-based one?
Yes, computerized AVL loom.
Would you mind just giving us a quick demonstration of what that looks like?
Let's take a look.
Okay.
So this is an AVL computerized loom. It works with, connected to this computer with a program called WeavePoint. It has 3 different areas on the graphic. We have the part where represents how the yarns on the warp are going through the harnesses. Then there's the fabric area of what it would look like. And this area refers to what harnesses are lifting when I'm pressing the pedals on the bottom, which are called treadles. Those 2 aspects modify the appearance of the fabric. The first one is how you thread the yarns of the warp, which are this set of yarns, what order specifically you are threading them through these frames. And then the second part is in which order do these frames lift so that you get different patterns. Over here I have an example of a blanket we did for a class at FIT. It's called the Woven Development. So we were trying to show the students 3-dimensional fabrics.
Sure, a little bit of everything here.
We have the waffle that we discussed before, honeycombs, brocade spots, the double weave. And we have fabrics that look one way in the front and entirely different on the back.
Oh, wow.
Then some that give you more the appearance of chenille.
Yeah.
So one of my favorite type of weaving is the double weave, in which you're weaving not one set of warps, but 2 sets of warps, and they can alternate at different areas. So we have a warp that is yellow, one that is black, and they are alternating, and you can create these way geometric compositions. This particular one was inspired by New York City taxi cabs.
All right, Ruben, you said that's not fine art, but that looks close enough to fine art for me. That's really cool.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun to design them, and then especially sometimes you design it with math in mind, but it's really awesome to see it coming off the loom and actually seeing what you're actually creating as you develop it is oftentimes surprising because I have no idea what it's going to look like.
Yeah. Well, Ruben, this has just been so fascinating. Thank you for sharing with us today.
Thank you so much, Ray. I really appreciate the opportunity.
Yeah. Some surprising art from a surprising artist. The surprises continue in our arts business segment. We're going to visit an old house. You won't believe what goes on inside. Let's check it out.
My name's Peter Cadis, and I work out of what I call Tarkin Studios here in Bridgeport. It's named after my brother Tarkin for no good reason. I think when we started a record label years ago, we wanted a name that was not just a funny catchphrase, just something original. It's like, well, we'll just name it after you. Peter Records doesn't have much of a ring to it, so it became Tarkin Studios. So he still gets a lot of credit for the records that are made here, although he deserves very little. I bought this house in the fall of 1998. It took about a year to build the studio, so it's over 20 years now, which is hard for me to believe, but it's true. If you come here, there's a studio, there's an engineer, mixer, producer, there are bedrooms, there's a kitchen. You know, it's very self-contained, and I have loads and loads of instruments. Again, a lot of times people will come from other continents, pretty much empty-handed, maybe with a guitar, and it's no problem. You know, the drum kit in there has been used on countless records. The bands that I'm best known for are all sort of categorized as indie rock. Some of them are on major labels, some of them are on indie labels, some of them are self-funded, but I think I'm most associated with bands like The National, who I've made a lot of records with, or the band Interpol, because they made their first 2 records here. Again, it's so hard to know when you're doing it, but that first Interpol record was really hard to make. They weren't famous at all. In fact, I remember at the time they said, "We're signing to Matador, and then we can pay you." And I was like, that's like saying you have a girlfriend in Canada. I didn't know if I should believe it or not, but that record ended up being amazing and being sort of an iconic indie rock record for the 2000s. I've worked with bands like The Head and the Heart, Stars. I was lucky enough to work with a band called Death Cab for Cutie last year. The easiest records to make are ones where the bands aren't totally stressed out, you know? So sometimes with a very young band, they'll be so stressed out that they'll be less open-minded about stuff. And I feel if bands are willing to sort of just go in whatever direction the process leads them, they're more likely to get something really exciting. I'm not a big pre-production guy in terms of, I do want bands to be big into their pre-production and really try to work out the songs the best they can. I think it's, that balance of the band being really ready and I'm ready, but I don't need lots of pre-production. Come in here, let's talk about it, and let's just start recording. I think bands come here because they hear records that have been made here that they like the sound of. I know, like, it's funny, when you start doing this, when you hear about someone or you know someone who has a sound, you're like, oh, I want that, I want a sound. And then you do it for long enough and you definitely get a sound. Like, I know that I have a sound, and for the most part, I'm happy about that. I'm proud of my sound, but then you also run the risk of being guilty of making records sound too much the same. So that's definitely something I'm aware of. Like, I love putting my signature on things, but it is about that record and that band. It's not just about me doing my thing. A lot of times people ask me, this is the dream job, it's so great. And I say it is, but it's also terrible. Because I love my job. I would do my job if I weren't paid for it. And if I don't work for a few days, I do sort of itch to get back into the studio. But I guess what's stressful about this is that when bands come in, it's not literal life or death. It's creative life or death, and people are so emotional and so stressed out. And I remember it took me years to realize that the bands are nervous too. I just thought I was the only one who was stressed out, but everyone is stressed out. And when bands sometimes get really bummed out about how hard it is to make records, I say making records is hard. If it weren't, everyone would do it. But it is hard. The way that I'm set up, it looks like I'm just mixing in the computer, but I'm really going through this very elaborate analog summing chain into the tape machines and some other things. So there's still a lot of analog elements, but it's all recallable. So I can make a mix and come back to it the next day, the day after that, a week later, a month later. And to me, that makes all the difference in the world. I'm much less crazy that, like, at the end of the day, like, this is it, you know. I think of mixing as the reward for all the hard work of recording, of getting things right. There are lots of good parts. I meet all these interesting people, and if you spend weeks or months with them doing something very meaningful to all of you in a really intense way, you know, that forms a sort of intimacy. Like, I make really good friends really quickly, you know. And being in a band really helps me in my job. I know what the artists are going through. I know how hard it is to, what seems easy, you know, you're looking through the glass at someone trying to sing a vocal. It's like, it's not that hard. It's like, give it a shot. It's really hard. Even people in real life, like, oh, they're so great. Put them under the magnifying glass of the studio, and they just can't believe how difficult it is.
We have one last stop on this amazing day in Bridgeport, so let's get in touch with our Where Art Thou Bridgeport curator, John Torres, to see where we are headed next. John, are you there?
I'm here, Ray.
So I have a brand new item for my bucket list, and that's to be recorded at Tarkin Studios by Peter Kadish. That was amazing.
Yeah, it's a pretty stunning place. The first time that I went there, I don't even think I spoke. I just wandered around looking at things. And to actually get to record there earlier this year and late last year was just a dream come true. So yeah, I'm totally with you on that.
What a treat. Okay, so where are we headed next?
We're actually headed now to The Nest. The Nest is here in Bridgeport. It's on Fairfield Avenue. It's actually also where I have my studio. And we're going to be visiting with Alicia Cobb. She is a Bridgeport-based fine artist, art educator, and body painter. And she's just amazing. Just as I said for Ruben, it's the kind of thing you have to see for yourself.
Did you say body painter?
I did. Her body painting is pretty stunning. I perform every year at the Art Trail Kickoff Party at the Reed's Art Space. And I first came into contact with her when a person completely painted head to toe with feathers and all kinds of accoutrements comes kind of floating through the crowd. And I was like, just stunned by what had happened to this person. I mean, her art is entirely encapsulating of the human body. Every part is painted, and it's just pretty amazing. But I'll let you see for yourself.
All right, that sounds really wild. I can't wait to meet Alicia. Hey, John, you did a great job today. Thanks so much.
Oh, of course, anytime, Ray.
We are outside the Nest Arts Factory building on Fairfield Avenue in Bridgeport. This is a collection of studios for professional artists of all stripes, including writers and musicians. So much collective talent and inspiration tucked away inside this old factory building. Let's meet Alicia Cobb. Alicia.
Hi, Ray.
How are you? I'm glad to meet you. Oh, wow. This is your studio.
This is my studio.
Awesome. I'm curious, Alicia, tell me a little bit about yourself.
Okay, so I am originally from Stamford, Connecticut, born and raised, and I came to Bridgeport about 22 years ago when my daughter was a baby. So I have two kids. I have a daughter who's almost 23 and a 19-year-old son.
Okay.
And I couldn't afford Stamford anymore, so I came to Bridgeport because it was affordable. And I bought my first house here when I was 20, and I've been here ever since, and I've grown tremendously as an artist.
Tell me about your artistic journey.
I've been drawing for as long as I can remember. I really turned to art when my parents were divorced. I was about 6, maybe 7 years old. And emotionally, it just took a huge toll on me, and I would sit for hours and just draw through it. And I did that for as long as I could remember, until I was probably a teenager, and I kind of let it go for a while. And then when I was going through a divorce, I turned back to art, and it just has kind of stuck and become a career.
What are some of the other turning points in your artistic career?
After I had my daughter, so I stopped painting, stopped creating, stopped drawing for probably about 10 years.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it was a long period of time because I was busy being a mom and a wife and working and going to school and doing all those good things. And then, as I mentioned, when I started going through my separation and divorce, I kind of remembered what art did for me as a child, and I turned back to it. I was like in Walmart, I don't know, buying paper towels one day, and I saw a small canvas and some paint on sale, and I was like, I wonder if I could paint. And I want to say I painted on canvas for probably about 2 to 3 years before I got the idea of painting on a body. And part of that came from I was face painting kids at family functions because I had social anxiety. I was terrified of talking to people. This is one of the things that has happened for me through my art is it's given me voice. It's given me the ability to speak and be confident in what I say and what I do. But it started out the very opposite. But I loved the connection that happened between me and these kids without really having to talk. When I had the idea to body paint, it was like, face painting on steroids. And I didn't know it was a thing. It was just like, I wonder what it would be like to paint a whole body. And I grew up in a really conservative household. My mom was Catholic growing up, and there was no nudity, there was none of that in my house. So it was really weird at first that I even had this idea. And then I found an entire underground community of people all over the country and all over the world that paint bodies for a living. And so I started to connect with these people, one of which is Craig Tracy. He's a body artist who's pretty famous in his own right. He was one of the judges on Skin Wars and a couple of other shows. And I kind of reached out to him thinking he's never going to respond to me, and he did. And I started to learn what techniques to use. I started finding out about conventions and classes and all this other stuff. And I love it because, again, it forges human connection, which is something that I didn't have for a really long time.
Well, Alicia, I'm really curious about the body painting. Why don't we set up and have you do your thing?
Absolutely. My model today is my brother Brian. He is kind of my veteran as a human canvas. I've been painting him for about 8 years. We've worked a lot together.
Yeah.
And he is literally the perfect canvas. Could not have asked for a better canvas. And he has a story and a history, and the body paint has helped him through some stuff and has helped him to heal, and it's helped me to heal. So I'm just happy to have him as my brother and my model.
So, Alicia, when you got started with this, do you have an idea in mind?
I do. It just actually came to me this morning. A lot of times when I'm working, I like to work based on kind of the things that are happening around me, the state of the world. Sometimes it's energetic. Things seem kind of, in disarray, and, a lot of upheaval, a lot of really crazy things happening right now. And art is, for me, a way to kind of deal with that.
Brian, do you remember the first time you got painted by your sister?
Oh, yes.
Tell me about it.
I was kind of nervous at first because I wasn't the type of person that would take my clothing off. I do have scars. It has always been something that when it came to myself, it wasn't something I liked to show. So at first, I was a little nervous, but she's my sister, and that just made it more comfortable.
Do you hear that from other people as well, other people you paint, that there's this therapeutic, calming feeling?
Almost every time, and it's not something that I plan. People come in and they're, revealing their bodies, and even models, people who we would look at as perfect, right? Not 1 ounce of cellulite. They have perfect bodies according to society.
Right.
They're just as nervous and just as vulnerable as everybody else, and so that human factor, the factor of just being human and knowing that we all have insecurities that we're dealing with and challenges and struggles. And almost everybody that I work with says that this has been therapeutic for them in some way. And it's therapeutic for me too. I actually go into a zone when I'm painting. And sometimes it feels like an out-of-body experience because I'll paint something, and then when I come out of this said zone, I'm like, whoa, I don't even like it. I know I'm the one. I know it came from my hands, but I definitely believe in higher power. I believe that this is a gift that was given to me and I'm just a vessel. So a lot of people will say my art, and I feel like it just comes through me because I can't necessarily explain everything that I create.
So you've got painting on a stretched out, taut canvas. And then you do this painting on people's bodies where there's nooks and crannies and little spaces.
Yeah.
Tell me about the difference.
I've learned that with the body, because of the nooks and crannies, you know, I have to be very mindful of color. Like even right now, trying to create a circle on the center of something that is three-dimensional. Like his body is three-dimensional. You know, he's got parts on his chest that, you know, it won't read as a circle necessarily if I don't configure it properly. It's always a little challenging to work on the human body because of the dimensions. Also because, you know, they're human. And they could get lightheaded, and they might need a drink or need to eat. Just being aware of the fact that this canvas is alive. The pandemic, though it's been extremely challenging in a lot of ways for the world and for me as well. You know, I have a couple loved ones that have been lost to coronavirus.
Oh, I'm sorry.
But it's also been an opportunity to see more value, you know, see more value in the things that we take advantage of or we take for granted every day.
Alicia, we're coming to the end. Did this come out how you had thought of it?
Yeah, pretty much. I wanted to keep it really simple. The earth is in the center. The gold around it kind of represents the healing that we need in order to do better and be better.
This was unbelievable, Alicia. Thank you for sharing with us.
Thank you for having me and allowing me to share.
Yeah. Well, we've had an amazing day here in Bridgeport. I hope you enjoyed it. You know, it's people like Alicia and Ruben that make this part of the state so special. Hey, maybe there's someone in your town, in your neighborhood, that's doing amazing artistic things. Well, we want to hear about it. Drop us a line at whereartthou@ctpublic.org. Join me next week. We're going to take this beat-up old van. We're going to head out to Litchfield. There's a dancer there who incorporates horses into her choreography. You won't want to miss it. Until then, I'm Ray Hartman. Thanks for watching Where Art Thou?
Funding provided by the Richard P. Garmany Fund at the Hartford Foundation for Public Giving.